The Uranus-Neptune conjunction and the spiritual quest of the new millennium. Welcome, everyone, to a new edition of the Triad of Transformation on the Healer and the Dreamer channel. I am your host, Martin Comtois. Setting a bit of a sacred space here for all of us. So the Triad of Transformation, we've been studying this for quite a while. And what is the Triad of Transformation? For those who are new to the channel, this is a deep dive into the big picture of the times that we're going through. We have new moon and full moon studies, but then we also do collective transpersonal astrology, where we study the outer planets and what they're doing. So the Triad of Transformation is a big astrological alignment that's building, where the outer planets, Uranus, and is getting ready to enter into Gemini. Now, before it enters into Gemini this this spring, we're having a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and then both Jupiter and Uranus will soon be entering Gemini. Then we have Neptune, which is in Pisces, which will be entering Aries, along with Saturn. And then we have Pluto that's already entered into Aquarius. So this is the Triad of Transformation. Basically, all of these planets will be entering masculine signs of Aquarius, Aries, and Gemini, and in 2025 and 2026, they will be in exact alignment to the exact degree. And so in our Triad of Transformation video playlist, we've been analyzing this, and today we analyze the Uranus-Neptune cycle. So that's an introduction. Let's see, we have another slide for you here. Okay. So this playlist, this is the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology channel, Astrology-Alchemy-Dreams-Jung. The Healer and the Dreamer weaves an insightful tapestry using astrology, alchemy, dream work, and the analytical psychology of Carl Gustav Jung to bring clarity to the path of self-realization in our modern times. So on a channel, you can find the Triad of Transformation playlist, and these are the videos on there. The introduction, the Triad of Transformation, WTF is going on, an astrological perspective on the current zeitgeist. Then we have the Triad of Transformation, the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto through the 2020s. Those two are two introductory videos that we've done so far. One was done this year, one was done last year. This alignment we've been contending with for a couple of years already, and we are going to deal with it till the end of the 2020s. So it behooves you to kind of get in tune, and all of these videos introduce you to all of that. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and the Farmer's Rebellion. This is a current alignment that we're going to be experiencing in the spring here, beginning of spring, and we have a video on that, which is very informative. Then we have two videos on Pluto and Aquarius, 2024 to 2044, the end of globalization, and also a new era, Pluto and Aquarius, 2023 to 2044, That's two videos that deal with the Pluto and Aquarius. Very interesting. Then we have the new Neptune Pluto cycle and the spirit of our times. And then today we're doing the Uranus Neptune conjunction and the spiritual quest of the new millennium. So that's a lot of information. We also have more coming. One that we will be doing next is the cycle of Uranus and Pluto. Now, the Triad of Transformation is not in alignment quite yet, but by the time the eclipse season comes this year, it will return to alignment, and basically it will be with an orb for the next 5 years. Making a deep dive into understanding what that means. And it's complex. Astrology is complex. So all these videos are there for you to get to understand these archetypal structures as they build. So the exact time of the or when the alignment is at its strongest, it's going to be next summer, not the 2024, but 2025 and 2026. This fall we'll experience it very heavily. Also this summer, we've dealt with it the last fall and last summer, and then also the 2022 where we started feeling that alignment. So we've been processing that information already quite a bit. So what does that all mean? Good question. So the Triad of Transformation, the Uranus-Neptune-Pluto constellation in the mid-2020s, Uranus-Neptune Transpersonal Archetypes and how we experience them personally. So, of course, we continue to explain these archetypal structure through these videos. So now let's try to, so one, these are transpersonal alignments. These planets take a very long time to move through the signs. Pluto moves at the rate of like it's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. Neptune has been in Pisces, will be in Pisces for a duration of 12 years. Uranus takes 7 years to go through a sign. And these three planets interrelate with each other. And of course, we have Jupiter and Saturn that are closely involved with this triad. So we're going to be explaining these planets through these videos. And so now we're dealing with Uranus and Neptune. So Uranus is one of the oldest gods in the Greek pantheon. It predates most of the history of the archetypal structure of the Greek pantheon. And so Uranus, it almost dates back to the matriarchy and Rhea and Uranus, the sky god, and the Rhea, the Mother Earth, or the Great Mother and the Great Father in indigenous and in pagan cultures. We have Father Sky and Mother Earth, and so that's the Uranus and Rhea, and very little exists about the information. But in the transformation between the matriarchal, in Uranus is very much a servant of Rhea at that time, and Rhea is his mother and his wife. And so we are at the matriarchal age, and in the transformation between the matriarchal age and the patriarchal age, we have Kronos, Saturn, a very patriarchal god, who castrates Uranus to become the king of the gods. And then he has been foretold that he would be also disposed by his son. So then he gets into the habit of eating his sons. And so, but eventually, Zeus is born secretly and overthrows his father. So that's like early, and then we have the Olympian gods ruled by Zeus. So this is kind of the history of Greek mythology. And so Uranos, the sky god. Now, Uranos, Uranus, was discovered in the 1700 by the first fellow who was able to make a telescope. And so, and it really signified, it's been associated with technology and the advancement of the human spirit. It came with followed the Renaissance, but came with the Enlightenment and the rise of technology and the real evolution of the human mind. So it's always was associated with this evolution of the human mind. So but very little information do we have about Uranus. But later in modern times, two astrologers, but mostly Liz Green, identified Uranos with Prometheus, the light bringer. And Richard Tarnas also followed that lead in his book, Cosmos and Psyche. So many astrologers use the archetype of Prometheus, the light bringer. And Prometheus is a very interesting god in that he brings, he helps Jupiter overthrow Saturn, or is it Saturn to overthrow Uranus? And he gives him a sickle to castrate Uranus, and the falling genitals give birth to Venus. Anyway, this is complex Greek mythology, and depending on who you talk to, the myths change. These are 3,000-year-old myths, so they have evolved with our times. So then Prometheus is a Titan and is known as the father of mankind, and he has special love for the humans, but he has privileges in heaven, in Olympia, and so he steals things to bring to the humans, steals agriculture, steals metallurgy, carpentry, just brings all of these things to the human, and gets in trouble with Zeus, who gets very mad and says to him, whatever you do, don't bring them fire. Because if you bring all of these things to the humans, they will become like the gods and they won't need us. And so then really we see, the meaning of Uranos is the evolution of the human spirit in the Enlightenment, where we've, like Nietzsche said, God is dead. And so that summarizes the evolution of the human spirit, where he doesn't need God anymore. So in that sense, but then what Prometheus does, is he steals fires anyway and brings it to the human. And for that, Zeus nails him to a rock on the Caucasus Mountains, and he's nailed to this rock, which is kind of Jesus being nailed. And then every morning an eagle comes and eats his liver, and every night the liver grows back. And so he's cursed like that every morning this eagle comes, eats his liver, the liver grows back overnight, again the eagle comes. And so that's the difficulty that comes with being a light bringer. And so Liz Green uses Carl Jung as an example for the price that he paid for bringing so much light to humanity. And then we have the Martin Luther Kings and the Che Guevaras and the Nelson Mandelas of the world, who pay a tremendous, Mahatma Gandhi, who paid a tremendous price for their task of bringing light to humanity. So that's kind of the archetype of Uranos. It's involved with the evolution of science and the evolution of the human spirit. And so wherever Uranus is constellated, we want to evolve. And that's experience in our own chart where Uranus is, what house and what sign, and what angles does it make to the other planets. But also it's experienced collectively in the cycles as Uranus moves through the zodiac, but also how it interacts with the other outer planets, especially Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Blah, 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 blah. So that's Uranus, Neptune. Neptune, we talked about Neptune in the Neptune Pluto video. And hopefully you watched that already, but here's a little bit of a download of Neptune. Now, Liz Green wrote an incredible book, one of probably the best written books that she's done, and she's done quite a few. And that book is Neptune, The Quest for Redemption. This is a beautiful read, very, very enlightening, one of my favorite, and it goes into incredible depth. And that's what Neptune is, right? He's the Lord of the depth. He's the ruler of the depth of the ocean. He's associated with Pluto. Pluto rules also the depth, but the depth of hell. And then Neptune is the depth of the ocean. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of mythological material associated with Neptune, and then through storytelling, and also through doing some very interesting charts. This screen breaks it down. Just to try to, of course, summarize that. Neptune basically is the great dissolver. It's the mystical connection with the depth. It's the return to the womb of the great mother. And so even though Neptune is a patriarchal god in recent invention, his wife was really the ruler in earlier time. And they have a lighthouse in Ucluelet named after her. I can't remember her name right now, but if you watching that from Ucluelet on Vancouver Island, you can mention that name to us. But anyway, that's the Neptune, the ruler of the depth. Liz Green compares him to the Hall of Mirror. And so Neptune is in the chart, in your personal chart, is where you want to merge back into the divine. And then we've been experiencing Neptune in Pisces, so it's like, the refusal to engage with the material world and to try to transcend the material world through various means has been really prominent. We kind of have our head in the sands, and then with Neptune getting ready to change into Aries, it's going to have a very, very different flavor. So that's the Neptune archetype. It's the Hall of Mirrors. Wherever you are, you have Neptune. That's the ability that you have to mirror others. It's really good in psychotherapeutical and in healing field, because you can have such a great ability to contain the other person. And so whatever Neptune engages with your personal chart, your sun, your moon, your personal planet, this is how you can engage with the Neptunian mysticism, but also the Neptunian escapism, because Neptune just doesn't want to experience pain. And we have transcendence and spiritual practice that are the higher octave of Neptune, but there's also the whole lower octave of Neptune, which is drugs and alcohol and, couch potato, and or merging back into the mother, refusing to grow up, all the Neptunian foibles that are experienced for Pisceans, they kind of ruled by Neptune. And so in that sense, we have Neptune and Uranus. Blah, 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 blah. That was a lot of information. I hope you like that. Let's see what our next slide is about. Okay, so now we looked at the archetypal and personal aspects of, and then we're going to go now to the Uranus-Neptune generation and the spiritual quest of the new millennium. So this is kind of the essence of the video now, is that in between 1988 and 2000, there was a generation born of people who had the conjunction of Uranus and Neptune together in the late degrees of Capricorn and the early degrees of Aquarius. The conjunction is exact in 93, in 88, 89, 90. That conjunction is met with Saturn. And so that's, and then that's a very, very important generation in our time. So the spiritual, with that generation is born the spiritual quest of the new millennium. And at that time, Uranus and Neptune were conjunction. So Uranus, Neptune in conjunction, you have the great revolutionary, evolutionary, and then we have the mystics, and so then the 90s were a time of great awakening of shamanic and mystical arts. Because of technology, computers made the studies available. It changed, everything changed when computers became accessible to everyone, telephones, cell phones, that technology, Uranus and Neptune, mysticism. So then we merge into the telephone, Neptune, we merge into technology, and technology makes a tremendous advance to the human mind, but also comes with a certain amount of shadow, right? And so that's the late 80s to early 90s. We had also at that beginning of that time, we had a revolution, a peaceful revolution, Neptunian revolution, where the tension that existed between the Soviet bloc and the West in what we call the Cold War dissolved in a Neptunian way and in an enlightened Uranian way. We had apartheid falling apart. We had so much great breakthroughs in human evolution that was mirrored by that Uranus-Neptune conjunction. Now, what does that mean personally in your own chart? I've been a practicing astrologer for 15 years now, and it became evident about 5 years into my practice that my work was especially valuable, and I was getting deeper with that generation than with other generations, although I've had tremendous amount of success with the older generations. And then, of course, the younger generations, they haven't really come, those born after 2000, I don't have as much experience with them because they're just coming of age. So we're going to be exploring these generations too. But the Uranus-Neptune generation, 88 to 2000, we kind of call them millennials. And with that, the spiritual quest, the evolution of spirituality is kind of ingrained in those people. So they have an ability, because they were raised with computers and with mass information, they have integrated more readily a lot of the mystical information that in older times took a long time. Like when I studied astrology for the first time in the 80s, you did your chart manually, and it took an hour to calculate a chart and to draw it. Now you can do it as a push of a button. Not only that, but you can go into deep, deep studies very, very easily. But that's true also with any techniques of shamanism, like Jung's collected works right here. It's online. You can go and download it and have all of Jung's work just right there on your computer. So that's the Uranus technology and the Neptune mysticism. Another way of looking at it, which is, kind of humoristic, but also really explores the challenge and the shadow involved with that, is that now we have the revolutionary Uranus and the Neptune mystics. So then we have technology and we have mysticism. So then we have young people going to the bush like hippies, but now they listen to electronic music, Uranus, Neptune. And so, and also the Uranian technology and the Neptunian. So now we have a wide variety of Neptunian escapes and all of this technology. And yes, it's a great advantage, but it's also a curse. As we talked about, Uranus, the liver gets eaten, and the Neptune, you don't really have a lot to say if you completely surrender to collective energies, then you lose your individuality, which is a great flaw of Neptune. So then we start to really penetrate into the meaning of the Uranus Neptune cycle and that 88 to 2000. Now, in the Triad of Transformation, Neptune and Uranus will be in sextile. So that's the first alignment after the conjunction. So there's an evolution. And then in the 50s, we're going to have the late 40s, we're going to have the Uranus Neptune square, which will be an evolution of that. So then it's a big picture, right? Understanding all the outer planets and how they work together. And that's the purpose of this Triad of Transformation video series. Blah, 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 blah. I hope you're enjoying this. And, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. And if you like this video, thumbs up. That really helps us. And if you can share this video series with your friends, that would be lovely. We're growing, growing, growing. Okay, next slide. So the slides are kind of my agenda. And so the Uranus-Neptune cycle, it's a 178-year cycle. So this is from Richard Tarnus's book, Cosmos and Psyche, another very important book. Spiritual awakenings and births of new religion, new philosophical movement, cultural renaissance, new art forms and media of expression, spiritually inspired activism. And to that, we can include breakthroughs in technology that are Neptunian, that facilitates mystical experiences, and so the rise of, film, very Uranian Neptunian, also astrology, Uranus Neptune, all of these mystical arts and the technology that's required to do these things. So that, and so in Richard Tarnus' Cosmos and Psyche, another really important book for you. I have one, my friend taught, got this book, Cosmos and Psyche. Most of these workshops these long view workshops are based on this book. Tremendous study for you. And Richard Tarnus maps the Uranus-Neptune cycle all the way to the dawn of history. It's a fascinating resource as you study astrology. So blah blah blah. So what were we doing here? Like I say, I keep up with my agenda through the slides. So that's the Uranus-Neptune cycle. And now we're going to look at the Uranus-Neptune cycle in our times. So the square of Uranus and Neptune will come in 2039 to 2042. The sextile, we're going to be living in 2025, 2026. Now, these are exact alignments. So these dates that I'm giving you, they're when Uranus and Neptune are within 1 degree of each other. And they're like that during those dates. And astrological alignments are like waves. If you live by the ocean or by big bodies of water, you see waves, and waves come. But waves start a long time before you even see them. And they gradually, as the ocean floor rises, the wave becomes more apparent. And then it becomes really big, and then it breaks. And then it goes to the shore. And if you've seen in Hawaii or in some places where there's big surf, these are huge waves, and they're felt, all the way to the shore, and they can be seen, a kilometer away, 2 kilometers away. So astrological alignments are like that. The exact point is like of the wave is when the 2 planets are within 1 degree or exact, that's the breaking point, but then they can be felt. So major events in the collective can be felt long time before they happen, and their influences is felt long time before. So these dates that I'm giving you, they're the exact dates that the breaking of the wave, but they can be felt. They've been felt for a while, and that's why we engage with understanding these transformations by studying the planets. Wow, this is fun. I love my job. Okay, so then 2025, 2026. So then the conjunction 92, 93 was exact, but from 88 to 2000, it's within an orb of 15 degrees. So this is now, and this is in the future, but this is this conjunction that we talked about, the 92, 93, and that, mystical revolutionary generations, and so we've talked about that already. Now let's look at the last before that. Let's look at the last before that. We have 66 to 67. And of course, from 1960 to 1970, so that's in sextile. The sextile between Uranus and Neptune in the 60s. Now, what happened in the 60s is we had a conjunction of Uranus and Pluto and we haven't done that Uranus-Pluto cycle. That's going to be our next video, and that's fascinating too. But we have Uranus and Pluto in conjunction in the sign of Virgo, and then we have the sextile of Neptune, 60 degrees. So this triad of transformation that we're speaking of involve Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus in this exact triad. And we had this same alignment in different proportions, different angular relationship, but all 3 planets, 66, 67 also. So that's to give you kind of a flavor of what is building. It's 66, 67 kind of flavor. I think that, well, if you're young, well, I think that we all know what happened in the 60s. So young or old. So that's fascinating, isn't it? So now let's look at this again. Now we go to the square in 54, 55. So 54 and 55 were very important times in terms of, well, the that was really the heightening of the tension between Russia, the Soviet Union, the communist bloc, and we had the revolution in China, the tension that happened in Korea, and the emancipation of technology, so that, we have the black and white TV and the telephone, and we have, the real beginning of the real modernity happens in the aftermath of the war, and all the technology that was used in the war now is used to make cars, and now we really become moderns, in that time, and very powerful time as well. So that's good to know. What else? 39 to 40. And this is also interesting. So now we have Uranus-Neptune in trine. So that's 120 degree between 39 and 40. This is the exact. So 5 years after, 5 years before, it's an angle. And what we have in 1939 and 1940 is we also have a conjunction. No, that's a square of Uranus-Pluto. Our next video will be on Uranus-Pluto, and that's fascinating history. But again, we have these three planets aligned in an exact alignment in 39 to 40, and it's also, we don't really need much historical perspective. Everybody knows that that's the beginning of World War II and everything that meant to our collective and to our ancestral lines. My mother was born in 1939. That's imprinted in my mother. And so in that sense, in your grandparents, that's these planetary alignments are cumulative, and they work through generations, and they're trends. And so now we're reconciling all of that. One of the things that I like to say about what we're going through in these times is that we're really being forced or being asked to integrate a tremendous amount of ancestral rage that were built up during the 60s and during the 40s, and even in World War I. It's all imprinted in our chart. Astrology is a tremendous tool for understanding the collective influences and the ancestral influences that bear down upon you. Okay. And then, let's do that again. Then we have the opposition of Uranus-Neptune in 1906 to 1910, beginning of World War I. And for those who watch the Neptune Pluto, also Pluto and Neptune are in conjunction at the turn of the century there in 1898 or so. And so then again, we have those three planets engaged in an exact alignment. And then we have to go to 1821 and 22 for the conjunction. And that's nothing that I have personal memory of, but lots can be drawn from that. So I think that we've gone pretty deep in this study. I wonder what you think about that. And if you have any questions about this, and what you can do is you can look at these three planets, and where do they fall in your chart? Do you have any planets at the beginning of Aquarius? Any planets at the beginning of Aries? any planets at the beginning of Gemini, or in the oppositions or the squares. So look at that triad of transformation, and then you start to look at what the major transits to your chart will be in the coming years, and that will be very helpful for you to understand the spirit of our time. Of course, you can reach out for a reading. This is why I do all of this work. One, to support you, but also to invite folks to support me through readings. This is how we support the channel. So what else do we got here? I think that do we have anything else? Here we go. This is how to reach me. You reach me at spiritofthetimes108@gmail.com. This is the Healer and the Dreamer video channel. Healer and Dreamer Astrology on YouTube and Facebook. This is the website. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you benefit from this study, and more coming. And again, like, subscribe, share, and any kind of personal feedback or questions. So important to us, because here I am in my little office, sitting in front of my computer. Your reactions and your engagements make it so much more personal. It's always an honor to be of service. We'll catch you next time. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay.